age, and we work really well together. And we also, or I should say, I also have 2 other employees who fit really well into the business, and we do a lot of work for both the public and for the private sector. So I'll just get started, and we'll feel free to stop me anytime if you have a question. My presentation is about 20 minutes, and Amy's is about 10. So we can wait till the end, and you can ask any kind of questions you want to. So whatever you want to do, we'll just kind of see how this goes. Okay, so I just said all of that. Okay, so here's Brown Mountain. This is the inside of the studio, and okay, now I am going to have to sit over here. Let's see here. That's me, Amy, and Kathy, and we also have Jennifer, who is not pictured in there. Let's see.
Can everybody hear her?
Yes. Yeah? Okay. And so this is just kind of an example of the types of things we work on: paintings, porcelain, ceramics, gilded frames and mirrors, antique furniture, glass and crystal, and art objects of all kinds. Some are extremely valuable. Others have more historical or sentimental significance. We also restore larger works of art, whether it be murals or gold leaf in churches. It's wonderful work, being surrounded by so many beautiful things. But I have to say the thing we love best about what we do is this. Regardless of whether it's a priceless oil painting or a porcelain figurine passed down from a great aunt, every item entrusted to our care has a story to tell. So what I want to talk about today is one of those stories. Earlier this year, as we were working away in the studio, we received a call from the Meadows Foundation. And they described a ceiling mural in the entryway of the Wilson House on Swiss Avenue that needed attention. They described the damage and asked if we could evaluate its condition and come up with a treatment plan. So we've worked on a number of restoration and conservation projects for the Meadows Foundation, but this project was not typical. And this is where the story begins. I had no idea that researching this project would reveal such a fascinating history. I couldn't have guessed that I would learn about a soldier and a social reformer who lived in Napoleon's France, or that the Wilson House research would reveal the story of a failed utopian community on the Trinity River. Not to mention that I would do a more in-depth education about one of our most historic and charming city streets in America. And all of these things are connected to this lovely little pastoral painting on the Wilson House's ceiling. First, let's talk about the location of the project. The mural is a decorative painting on canvas, and it's been adhered to the plaster and lath ceiling that's found in the entryway of the Wilson House. It's located on the Wilson block of Swiss Avenue. The Wilson block is a historic district located in East Dallas, right near downtown. It consists of several houses that were constructed between 1899 and 1902. The houses have been restored and maintained by the Meadows Foundation to preserve their turn-of-the-century charm. The Wilson House is one of these houses shown here, and it was built by Henrietta Freeshow Wilson and her husband, Frederick P. Wilson. The Wilson House is the cornerstone of the block, as Mr. Wilson built all but one of the houses now on the block for his family and friends. One house was moved in place, and it was put in place on the lot next to the Wilson House. That lot had originally been a play area for the Wilson children. The Wilson House is an art object unto itself. Built in the neoclassical Queen Anne style, the wood frame house has an asymmetrical facade and an expansive wraparound front porch. The round turret, a hallmark of the Queen Anne design, and many of the dormers are covered with decorative fish scale shingles. Here are some photos of the inside. Many of the original materials have been saved, including doors, windows, transoms, stained glass, fireplace, and chimneys. The light fixtures are not original, they're replicas. The house was built at the transition between gas and electricity. The light fixtures offered a choice. You could either light a flame or turn a switch for electricity. The exterior colors of the house have all been matched to the original colors used. The complex includes the original carriage house and a kitchen house. The original kitchen was outside to lessen the chance of fire. And that brings us back to the mural. Here's an image of the mural as well as the cove paintings on the paintings on the arched coves that surround it. This is before treatment. It's thought to have been painted sometime before 1910. The 13 by 18 foot central flat mural is pastoral in nature with two cherubs in the background and another cherub gazing lovingly at a reclining putti. If you look really close, you can see a sunrise just beyond the putti. The figures are playing among a floral motif within a central medallion, also ringed with leaves and flowers. There are also 4 paintings on canvas in the arched coves of the ceiling. Each cove painting represents one of 4 seasons. The seasons are represented by a type of flower located in a corner. Pine cones for winter, roses for spring, chrysanthemums for summer, and sunflowers for fall. 2 of the cove paintings have one small scene within each, and both are landscapes. One is depicted in the daytime and the other at night. The daytime scene shows 2 sphinx on terrace steps leading to a lake that is surrounded by weeping willows and other trees, with the house barely visible in the background. The moonlight scene depicts a small house sited on a pond with a split rail fence and somewhat ominous shadowy trees. The flat central mural is in the French Romantic style, and the coves lean toward Art Nouveau. Because of the difference in style, it is believed that the coves in the ceiling were painted by 2 different artists. The paintings had no visible signature, which is very common, as most ceiling murals created at the time were unsigned. According to Bowie Harwood, who wrote the book Decorating Texas, the Wilson House has one of only about 40 Victorian-era interior decorative paintings in Texas. Most of those are stencils, so this mural is especially significant because it was painted freehand. We at Brown Mountain were excited to evaluate the mural's condition. We knew that there were few houses in Texas with freehand decorative paintings. And to be honest, we had worked on many large paintings and murals, but none on a ceiling. We were ready for the challenge. Everybody doing okay? Yeah. We went to examine the painting. It was lit by a chandelier hanging in the center of the room with low wattage. There were also 2 lighted sconces on the walls. At first it appeared that there was simply a tear in the canvas and it had delaminated from the plaster ceiling. Upon closer inspection and better lighting, however, we realized the mural was actually in pretty poor condition. It had been restored several times in the past, but there were no written records of what was done or what materials were used to do it. It was heavily overpainted, hiding much of the original artwork. Many areas had been overcleaned or skinned. Many leaves and flowers were just barely visible. Here is an image of the putti's leg that couldn't even be seen until we got it under a bright light. Areas of canvas were found to be separating from an unstable plaster and lath substrate. The surface at the middle left was lumpy and hard. The plaster had separated from the lath in areas and was being held in place just by the mural, giving us a false sense of stability of the plaster underneath. The canvas had separated from the plaster in several areas as well, giving the canvas a drooping appearance. All of this was in addition to the tear that was immediately visible. The entire top half of the painting had been previously torn and glued back to the plaster. The arrows point to the tear. It goes all the way across the painting. The canvas was pinched and folded from the previous treatment, primarily at the top right quadrant. Paint had flaked away from the canvas, and those areas of loss had been painted over without having been filled to level, and the colors didn't match the artist's original colors. There was obvious overpainting used to hide this fact. Despite the condition of the mural, we were intrigued by it. It was a whimsical, lovely piece of art that has historical significance. After visiting the house and seeing the mural, I felt it was necessary to research more about its history and the story of the owners. So when I first started this talk, I spoke of a soldier and a social reformer who lived in Napoleon's France. The Frenchman's name was Victor Prosper Considerant, one of the leading democratic socialists during France's revolutionary period. After being exiled by Napoleon, he convinced his followers to immigrate from Europe to land he had purchased on the Trinity River near Dallas, Texas, of all places. The community would be named La Reunion. The idea was to create a communal experiment in direct democracy, where participants would share in the profits based on the amount of their investment and the quality of their labor. By 1856, some 400 residents had arrived in Texas dreaming of sharing in a new kind of democracy. Unfortunately, they were ill prepared for living off the land. Most of the immigrants were artists and intellectuals. They had land but no farming skills. They simply weren't prepared for the Texas heat. The Trinity turned out to be unnavigable. It must have been devastating to experience such misery. Within about 18 months, La Reunion ceased to exist. Immigrants scattered, and some came to nearby Dallas. One of those original La Reunion settlers who fled the failing colony was Jacob Nussbaumer, and another was Henry Bull. After leaving La Reunion, Nussbaumer and Bull, along with their wives, bought 57 acres of land in East Dallas. This farmland provided meat for the town. As it turns out, Henry Bull was the grandfather of Henrietta Wilson, and Nussbaumer was her uncle. Henrietta and her husband eventually purchased a tract of land from the Nussbaumers that became the Wilson block. So it might seem kind of a stretch, all of this history, but if it had not been for Victor Prosper Consideron's exile from France and the failure of La Reunion, the Wilson House and its ceiling mural wouldn't exist. Here is an image of the mural seen from the outside, or from outside